Good evening. Thank you for your patience. I am Monica Rankin, Director of the Center for U.S. Latin America Initiatives here at UT Dallas. On behalf of the Center and the School of Arts and Humanities, it is my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's event. CUSLI sponsors a variety of initiatives designed to enhance the interconnectedness of the UT Dallas community, the Dallas community, and the Latin American region as a whole. I think the turnout tonight is a strong indication that there is a lot of interest in maintaining that interconnectedness. We are excited to have with us tonight former Mexican President Vicente Fox. He will join us to talk about his new book, Let's Move On. To me, it seems only appropriate that this event is taking place as we celebrate President's Day, in fact. I am truly delighted to see such a large crowd on this rainy, humid Monday. I would like to acknowledge many members of the greater Dallas community for joining us today. Welcome to UT Dallas. In particular, I would also like to note the large number of student attendees. Only a few of them are in my class and were forced to attend. The rest are here voluntarily. I also know that there are a number of local colleges in the area that have students attending this event with us, and a few high schools in the area. I'll embarrass my daughter right now. She's one of them. Thank you for coming, Kyla. It is heartening to see so many of you dedicated to building bridges and promoting cultural exchange, themes that are at the heart of today's talk and at the heart of what we do at the Latin America Center. I would also like to acknowledge our co-sponsors for today's event. I would like to extend a special thank you to Clara Hinojosa and the Mexico Institute, along with Fernando Krasovsky and the Asociación de Empresarios Mexicanos. Before we begin, let me ask you to please turn off your cell phones. And as a courtesy to all of our guests, please refrain from taking video and from flash photography. This evening's event will be a moderated discussion, followed by a brief period of Q&A from the audience. To facilitate audience questions, we ask that you write your questions on note cards. We have note cards at the two tables at the corners of the middle landing. We have ushers who can distribute those to you. If you can raise a hand if you want a note card, if there's a point during the discussion that you have something that you want to write down. And hand those back to the ushers or drop them on the tables. There's a couple of black bags on those tables. Those will be collected and brought to us, and we'll use those for the audience Q&A at the end. Moderating our discussion this evening, I am pleased to introduce Claudia Torrescano. Claudia is a member of the Mexico Institute and the Asociación de Empresarios Mexicanos. She is also a former host of Univision Radio talk program Buenos Dias, DFW, and she continues to work in communications, public relations, and marketing. Please join me in welcoming Claudia Torrescano. And now to introduce our featured guest, it is my great pleasure to welcome to the stage UT Dallas Executive Vice President Hobson Wildenthal.
Welcome again. It's a great pleasure and a great privilege to introduce to you someone I hope who needs no introduction, so I'm not going to read the full page of his history. But former President Vicente Fox is no stranger to UT Dallas. 22 years ago, minus a month, he was a guest for the first time on our campus. At that time, he spoke in a building which is now destroyed. This building did not exist, and our university population was 1/3 of what it is today. But in those 22 years, a lot has happened to UT Dallas, and of course, then Governor Fox went on to become President of Mexico, epochal change in Mexican politics and democracy. We've had great relations with Guanajuato, thanks to him and our own community here. I'm going to say only one thing, which I said 22 years ago, having first heard then Governor Fox speak. I said then, and I'll say it again, I really wish he had been born in Texas instead of Guanajuato. So, Mr. Fox, thank you for joining us today.
Well, it's great to see you again here in Dallas. Welcome, bienvenido, paisano.
Muchísimas gracias, muy buenas noches. Muchas gracias.
Well, we congratulate you on the publication of your new book, which hopefully we can get a copy in a little bit so then we can show it to everyone. And I know that in the book you focus mainly on the relationship between Mexico and United States. But first of all, we would like to know, usually the former presidents of Mexico, when they leave the presidency, they usually disappear from the public lens. But you have done the contrary. You have really been very active, and you have been participating in keeping a very close eye to the United States, and now specifically the president, Mr. President Trump. So we will cover and we will talk a little bit. We want to hear a little bit of what you talk on the book, and we will hear about trade. We will talk about immigration, and then again about politics, what's happening in the elections in Mexico. But first of all,
the wall.
Yes, the wall. We will definitely touch on the wall. And
The fucking wall.
the F wall, yes. We also know that that was definitely a trend on Twitter. We know that, so we will definitely remember that. So we would like to know and hear, I know that you say in your book that 120 million Mexicans are mad at the comments that Mr. Trump has been talking about the Mexican immigrant. And I would say not only 120, but if you add the population that lives in this country, and of course other people who is not Mexican, but that live abroad. So can you share a little bit about that?
Okay, again, thank you very much, and pleased to be here in this great university, which I had the fortune to visit and come invited, and that I admire this university. Great university of excellence, state of the art. And coming to the point, the book. In that book, I tried to speak about all these issues related to Mexico and United States relationship, which comes from way, way behind, centuries behind. We're neighbors. We've been neighbors for a long, long time. We were at war at one time. And, but later on, we've been building and building this sometimes very difficult relationship, some other times very fruitful and successful relationship. It's been a hard work. It's been a hard work throughout the last decades, and more so when NAFTA negotiations started. And that's when we decided, both nations, United States and Mexico, together with Canada, that it was very important looking at the future, having in consideration the challenge presented by the East, especially by China, but those very strong, successful economies, that together they are much larger than U.S. economy. China by itself is now getting close to the size of U.S. economy. As a matter of fact, in trading, China's trade balance today is much larger than United States trade balance. And with that in mind, China has been able to create over 300 million people in China that today became middle classes. So it's the country with the largest middle class in the whole of the world, much more middle class than United States. And they have done that in 25 years, only in 25 years. So the threat, the challenge is right there on the east. It's not south, it's not in Mexico, because we're no criminals, no rapists, we're good people with a very strong will and desire to progress, to do better for ourselves, to do better for our families. And that is why I admire so much. They are my heroes, all those great paisanos that are here in the United States. The ones documented and the ones not documented. All of them have contributed to make this economy competitive, to grow this economy, to create wealth. So they are part of America today, and they have made America great. Nobody's going to make America great and greater than what it is today. And especially not one person, because to make a country great is the effort of all of its citizens, of its universities, of its corporations, of its everything. That's the way you build a nation, and that's what these great Mexicans have contributed here. That's why I don't understand the problem and the issue brought by President Trump. It's incredible. He pretends to kick out DACAs, that 1,800,000 kids that have dreamed with a great future, that have worked hard, that have made great sacrifices to be the leaders that they are today. This nation cannot get rid of them. They are an asset. They are. And if that happens, Mexico would welcome all those DACAs with their talent, with their leadership, and Mexico would change because of them. And Mexico is changing, and we have jobs for them now. We're close to full employment in Mexico. Mexican economy today is strong. It's the most competitive place in the world for manufacturing, more than China. We can produce at better quality, less cost than what China can do. And all this is the product of NAFTA. That's what we have worked for, to make sure that Mexico upgrades itself and gets to the level of Canada and United States. And that's already happening, because let me tell you this, when NAFTA started, you would make the equivalent of $1 on the Mexican side. And by crossing the Rio Grande, by learning to swim, or by jumping a wall, you would be making $10 25 years ago. Who of you would not go for that incentive to increase and to improve your income tenfold? That's an economic issue, and that's the way that border has been working. Today, 1 million people cross that border every day, back and forth. Americans coming to Mexico, Mexicans coming to United States. 1 million people, and hundreds of thousands of containers that we trade between United States and Mexico. And that trade balance today, together with Canada, is approaching $1 trillion. This is $1 million is what we trade every year. And we trade even. What we buy, we sell. So Mexico is accountable for 10 million direct jobs to U.S. citizens that have those jobs because of what Mexico imports from United States. Just thinking about food, agriculture, we buy from United States $40 billion US worth of yellow corn that we import to Mexico. And that's why 3 million farmers in United States can survive and can have income. So the day that this guy makes that locura of canceling NAFTA, those 3 million farmers, what the hell are they going to do with the grain? Where are they going to sell it? And so a lot of good things happen in our partnership, and nobody wants this to be destroyed. It's taking a lot of sacrifice, a lot of effort to build what we have today.
And then we have Mr. Trump continuing to speak about one of his mantras, as you say, America first, hire America, buy American, and the United States would make and buy its own stuff just by bringing back everything and all the jobs back to overseas. Is that really true? Is the immigrant community really taking the jobs away from this country?
Okay, several comments here. Number one is that each nation and each economy has its capabilities. No single nation by itself can produce everything, can do everything you want, and that's why in the world we have understood that you have to make agreements, like the European Union. What a successful agreement. Most of the nations in Europe have greater per capita incomes than what you have here in the United States. And the distribution of income in Europe is so little, so wide. Everybody's about the same than everybody else. Distribution of income in the United States is from here all the way up to the roof. Some very few have billions, some others have just enough to survive. This is why that tax reform is so unfair, because most of the money goes up here and not to the rest. But anyway, Europe has solved with a lot of good sense and good wisdom that situation. Now, what we have today is a world that is built out of blocks working together so that we compensate what we don't have. And I will tell you a little story. 5 years ago, only 5 years ago, Chrysler, Ford Motor Company, General Motors went broke. And who took them out of bankruptcy? You, taxpayers, American taxpayers. Billions of US dollars were given to those corporations to survive. And so they were rescued. And these corporations learned the lesson. And they understood that they have to become NAFTA corporations so that they have 1 foot in Canada, 1 foot in the United States, and 1 foot in Mexico. And through that, they came back to be competitive by being NAFTA corporations. And they are back in the marketplace. They are selling cars now everywhere in the world, and they're competing here in the United States. If those corporations are forced to come back and produce their automobiles here, they will go broke again. There is no way GM or Ford or Chrysler can compete with BMWs, with Mercedes-Benz on quality, can compete with Toyotas, with Nissans, with Mazdas, with Volkswagen, price-wise. So the logic the wise thing to do is to work together. 40% of one automobile manufactured in Mexico come from United States. So United States still produces most of the parts to manufacture one car in Mexico. Plus, those cars are sold in Mexico, sold in South America. They don't return back here, all of them. So we have a pretty good deal. NAFTA is a pretty good proposal. And my forecast is the following. From 10 to 1, in 25 years, we moved to a gap of 5 to 1. So as you can see, the incentive is not there anymore. The economic incentive. That's why today we see the trend reversing. That's why we see today more Mexicans coming back to Mexico than those coming up north. And the second reason why is because through NAFTA, Mexico now has the jobs to offer to those kids. My region, Center Mexico, El Bajío, has 11 automobile manufacturing plants. In this small region in Mexico, 11. All of them are there. Of course, Chrysler, Ford, GM, but it's Volkswagen, it's BMWs, it's Mercedes-Benz being manufactured there because we are competitive. And that's the way we can look at a successful future from now on. Now, 25 years from now, another generation, my forecast is that that gap is going to be 1 to 1. That you will make $1 on the Mexican side when you will be making $1 on the US side. Same as it happens with Canada and United States. That will happen with Mexico and United States because that's what we are working for. That border is drilled so much. There are so many bridges. There are so many people crossing, so many containers, hundreds of containers of product crossing every day, that border, that of course, like humidity, development, jobs, wealth creation is coming down into Mexico. And that's why northern states of Mexico not only full employment, but per capita incomes in Chihuahua, in Nuevo León, in Tamaulipas, in Coahuila, in Baja California, and all of them is overpassed now $20,000 per capita income, which is middle income as Poland has, as other countries have, the tigers of Asia. So now that humidity is coming down because when you come to center Mexico, we have per capita incomes of $12,500 in our place in Guanajuato, in Querétaro. But that's growing, expanding at 8% a year gross product. So pretty soon we're going to be reaching the 20,000. Now, when you go further south, then in Oaxaca, in Chiapas, there the income is down, the per capita income is down to 4,000 only. So you have 20,000 on the north, 12,000 in center Mexico, 4,000 in the south, and that's the way it extends to Central America, around 4,000, 5,000. So it's clear that NAFTA has been great for Mexico, it's been great for United States, it's been great for Canada.
Thank you. So what about the wall? I understand Mexico is not paying for the wall. You've said, and you also say it in your book, that walls do not work. They did not work in Berlin, did not work for China. Right. What's going to happen? What do you feel?
Well, that's exactly the way you said it. And I mean, can somebody believe that a guy so-called president of any nation can tell his neighbor, I'm going to build a wall and you're going to pay for it? What is the substance of that? What is the reason? It's not explainable. It came out of his mind like those tweets he does every day. He doesn't think what he's saying. He just says it. And that's why now he's in a trap. He's in a trap because he promised those white American middle classes that he would build that wall. And now, how is he going to deliver? Congress is not approving the funds. Mexico is saying, Donald Trump, no wall. So he's going to go after you. Now he's going to go after you and say, taxpayers, I'm sorry, I have to use some money for the wall. Do you know what you can do with 25 to 35 billion US dollars? Do you know how many universities you can build? Do you know how many jobs you can create? Can you imagine what you can do with that amount of money wasted in a wall? When that wall serves no purpose. And the wise thing to do is what President Bush did, Bush 43. And we sat together and we decided to go for a all-comprehensive immigration reform. And he came to the ranch, his first official visit as president, to Rancho San Cristobal, where all of you have your home. Anytime you're in Mexico, please come. You're gonna have real enchiladas, real taco balls, real tequila. So we sat there for a day and a half, and we decided we would go for it, that we would go for the whole enchilada, and we worked hard. Unfortunately, September the 11th came by and caught our dreams and caught the work and the agreements we were having. That very sad day of September the 11th. And priorities changed. And President Bush gave me a phone call, Vicente, I'm sorry, but we're not gonna keep on working with the immigration deal right now. Give me a little bit of time and we'll come back to it. And then he invited me to come to Congress here on an official visit to the White House. And I went to Congress. I had the honor to speak to joint chambers, the two of them together, and speak about this reform and speak about the relationship between Mexico and United States. And everything was ready to go. Everything was ready to be approved. Unfortunately, 4 days later, September the 11th came, and everybody was shocked. And it became second priority, the deal about migration. But otherwise, we would have had that reform. Now, that reform, that bill was presented to Congress by Senator Kennedy and Senator McCain, a bipartisan bill. It's there sitting in Congress. It has not been processed, and it has the answer to put something together that is a win-win situation to both of us. But that didn't happen. So we're still trying to build bridges instead of building walls.
And talking about walls, if the wall does get built, would that still stop the problem of the drugs coming into this country and the guns going back to Mexico?
Only a process like I mentioned will solve the issue. It's economic. As long as Mexico keeps progressing, keeps doing better, that will happen. And we don't need a wall. That's why I think it's a wasteless wall. Now, we have problems in Mexico. We have many problems in Mexico. And a couple of them are the main problems that we have. One is corruption. Corruption is bad in Mexico. It's bad most of Latin America, most parts of the world, and even corruption exists here. You call it lobbying, but it's exactly the same thing.
And they pay well for doing that. They also pay well.
So that's the situation we have. Now, the other problem, the second one, is drugs, cartels, violence, killings, blood in the streets of Mexico. And yes, many people wonder what the hell is going on with those Mexicans. Are they drinking too much tequila, or why are they killing each other? And nobody stops and tries to understand what's going on there in Mexico. Number one, the headquarters of crime cartels are here in the United States, and they're not Mexican. They are not Mexicans. It's organized crime in United States. And they contract Mexican cartels to bring the drug, to supply the demand, the huge, the mammoth demand of drugs that this nation has. And that drug is not produced in Mexico. That drug is produced down south, in Colombia, in Venezuela, in Ecuador, and Bolivia. The production of drugs in Mexico is insignificant, and the consumption of drugs in Mexico is not relevant. And yet, we have this severe problem. The war on drugs is being carried on in Mexico. And 30,000, 40,000 kids die on the streets of Mexico. They are killed by the army, by the cartels, on this stupid war on drugs. And those kids were not born criminals. They do not have criminality in their genes. The problem of them, different to you kids here in this great university, is that they didn't get a scholarship to go to school. Is that they didn't get a job to work at GM or any other factory. And cartels contracted them. And it's about 100,000 of them working for the cartels, and the cartels working for the cartels in the United States. And those kids then are join the cartels because they're making twice the salary that GM is paying in Mexico in their factories. So what would you choose when you don't have options? So we need to create jobs in Mexico. We need to build universities. We need to have scholarships for these kids. We need to have answers to their dreams. We need to have opportunities for them, and we're working hard, believe me, that Mexico is progressing, our economy is growing. We have very strong fundamentals of the economy, better than this nation. We don't have the kind of debt that you have here. We have the same interest rates, very low. We have the same inflation rates, very low. It's a competitive nation. The problem, let me tell you, is behind, is those 100 years, last century, that all of Latin American countries were in hands of dictators, were in hands of authoritarian leaders, of demagogues, of populists, like the Perons in Argentina, like the Kirchners in Argentina, like the Maduros and the Chavez in Venezuela, like all those dictators that we suffered for 100 years. Finally, we got rid of them. Finally, we got rid of those dictators at the end of last century. And it's when Latin America has been progressing and advancing. Our economies are doing well. But now we live by democracy and we live by freedom. And only when you have freedom, when you can decide, you innovate, you create, you become entrepreneur. But all of those things we didn't have in Latin America for 100 years. So now we're recuperating the time lost then. It happened to be that the authoritarian government, the regimes we had, and we suffered for the whole of the century, I had the fortune to represent Mexicans that wanted to move ahead, wanted to change, wanted to live by democracy and freedom. So, yes, we're recuperating the time lost behind, but we're working hard. We're a solid partner of this nation. We like this nation. We don't want the gringo feo back as we had it last century. We don't want the ugly American. We don't want the Trumps coming back and telling us what to do and pressing that he will shoot us an atomic bomb if we don't do what he wants. I mean, that's not the way to deal in this open world, in this global world, on this democratic and free world that we have today. I let you thinking, huh?
And before we go to the Q&A session, I would like to now, Mexican citizens living abroad, just like me, have the right to vote for the upcoming presidential election in Mexico. We know that the last presidential election, there was a high percentage of participation of the immigrant community who registered to vote. And we know that among those leading the votes were New York, Chicago, LA, and of course, Dallas. We had a very important presence in the vote of Mexico's president. How do you see that participation coming or resulting this coming year? And who do you think will win? Will it be the PRI again taking over? Will it be PAN? Or will it be the PRD or the PRD?
Well, first of all, maybe a couple of comments. The world is changing, and it's changing very, very, very fast. Every day, new things. Every day, discoveries. Every day, innovation. And this is happening on the political arena also, as well as happening in science, in technology, in business, in economy. Big changes are going on in politics. And why? Because democracy is not delivering. And that's why here there is a big complaint in the United States that not everybody is getting what they think they deserve. They are disappointed with Washington, with the swamp, with Wall Street, with Trump, with everybody. Big disappointment. And same is happening everywhere else. It's not privative of United States. We are all up to our neck about our governments, about our Congresses, and about democracy not delivering. So democracy is being deeply questioned. And this is what Trump took advantage of. He's appealing to those that are not satisfied, to those that say we need America great again. So he was very accurate on his proposals. He appealed to fear. So he said, if you have fear, don't worry, I will build a wall. If you have fear again, don't worry, we have atomic bombs and I'm going to invest more and more on U.S. Army. And we're going to develop further the atomic technology. If you don't have a job, don't worry, I get you one. We will take it away from Mexico and bring it back here for you. And the carbon jobs, he promised he will bring them back. Those jobs will never come back again. Mexico didn't take those jobs. Those jobs were lost with technology, with robots. I don't know if you have visited one of these state-of-the-art automobile plants, which is robots everywhere on the production line. Everything moves automatically, and that's what is causing unemployment. And that's a big challenge to the future. What you have to do, why doesn't Trump speak about education? Why doesn't he speak about building more IT, more technologies, more universities, more schools, more community colleges? Why doesn't he appeal to the young generation and tell them, we are going to work, both of us, to build a better future? We're running at high speed towards a world without jobs. And this is going to happen next 5 to 10 years. Automobiles don't need a chauffeur anymore. Factories will not need but robots. And how good that's going to be, because we human beings now are going to have robots working for us. We're going to build them and pay them to produce for us human beings. And what are we going to do? Dedicate our time to spiritual activities, to reading, to learning, to knowledge, and to many other things. So it's absolutely obsolete. The thinking of Donald Trump is absolutely 100 years old and behind. This nation needs to look at the future the way Tom Friedman, the columnist from New York Times, writes, like Noah describes on his Homo sapiens book. Please read it. And you will learn a lot of things that are coming and that don't have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with Trump is proposing. And I can say this because in Latin America, we lost that full century because we believed those dictators, those authoritarian governments. We said, okay, you're going to give me a job? Fine. I sit down here, get my beer, and wait for you to give me the job I need. And that's the way we thought for a full century in Latin America. We lost our time, and we lagged behind. Now we woke up and we say, it's on me. It's on every one of us to build the future we want for us. Not Trump that is going to build our world for us. It's ourselves, it's leaders, compassionate leaders. Leaders that we are all. We are leaders. We have that power within. As long as we have a purpose, the right purpose and the right cause, there is no limit for leaders to grow and grow, to reach the space if needed. Leadership is the power that moves this world, and we're all leaders. And that's why the responsibility for these students here is tough. It's difficult because you have the great opportunity to be on a state-of-the-art, a university of excellence. In Latin America, 70 out of each 100 kids don't have the opportunity to go to a university because we lost the 20th century. Now we have to build and move fast so that we have opportunities for them. Imagine 70 kids out there that cannot even dream about going to a university. So that's the challenge, that's the responsibility of those that are here, those that are getting prepared to be leaders, efficient leaders, leaders that perform, but your number one responsibility is making sure that those other 70 kids get the same opportunities that you have today. And that's what we have to work for, to link the vanguard, the successful vanguard, with the rear guard that is forgotten back there. And there is no wall to stop somebody that has hunger, to stop somebody that is decided to go for a different future. There is no wall that will solve that. Only knowledge, only education, only technology, and only leaders that are compassionate, that speak about love, that speak about the other, that put themselves in the shoes of the other, and you understand him and you try to do something for them. This language is totally absent on the brain of Trump.
Thank you, Mr. President Fox. And now we will have Monica Rankin. She will be guiding the Q&A.
All right, thank you very much. What an interesting exchange of ideas. We have quite a few questions from the audience, and we'll get through as many of them as we can. The first one, I'm consolidating several questions along this same theme. Of all of the candidates for this year's presidential election in Mexico, whom do you support the most?
I am glad that she talks about candidates. That's what matters. Not parties, not political parties. And I'm surprised here in the United States, the behavior of political parties, Democrats and Republicans. You're born Republican and you die Republican. You're born Democrat and you die Democrat. Ideologies, to me, is a case of the past. The world doesn't move by ideologies anymore. The successful part of the world, like China and the East, nobody remembers Mao Zedong. Nobody remembers his ideology. The only ideology in China today is very pragmatic. It's jobs, it's education, it's health, it's opportunities, and that's what it's all about today. Governments have to deliver on that. It's what really matters. As I said, to me, ideologies are a thing of the past. And so the good question is, who is the best candidate in Mexico? We have 3. We have 11 political parties, but they have gathered together, and the proposal is 3. One comes from PRI, Pepe Mid. One comes from PAN, Anaya, and one comes forever and forever. Lopitos. Lopitos, the populist, the demagogue. Have you seen the team he proposed? Have you read about the people he's bringing back? And he's giving them these priority seats in the Senate and in Congress? I mean, this guy Napoleon coming from Canada, I went after him, I prosecuted him, and he ran away and went as a refugee to Canada. And he's been there since 2006. He cheated, he took away all the money from the miners' union in Mexico. And now Lopitos is bringing him back because he wants the votes of the miners. And he offered him a Senate position, a guaranteed Senate position. That's the kind of guy. He's a populist, he's a demagogue, and but yet he's leading the race today. But he's been racing for 18 years now. It's the 3rd time that he runs for presidency. And of course, he's better known than the others, and he's been advertising and promoting his name all along. So discard him. He will not be president of Mexico. I'll make sure of that. Number 2, Anaya. Anaya's a bright guy. He's a bright kid, very young, very unexperienced. He has not even run or managed a changarro. Nada. He has not had government positions whatsoever at any level, none. So 0 experience. A lot of good talk. He presents himself as he is, a young guy. He speaks about technology. He goes to Silicon Valley. He gets pictures of him there and everything. But experience, seniority is most important. Look at Trump, no experience. No experience. And he moves from business, and he thinks it's the same thing to run a nation. I went through that process. And I had a long learning process. I was congressman first. I made a lot of mistakes, but I learned a lot. Then I became governor of my state. I kept learning the difference between politics and business. And finally, I became president, and yet my first year or 2 years, learning and learning again the different way you have to approach problems and take solutions. This guy will learn, but maybe he's going to be dead by the time he learns what is politics all about. And so it's crucial now. The 3rd one is Pepe Mid, which is representing the PRI. He is not a priest. That's a good symbol. Number 2, he has years and years of experience. He was Minister of Foreign Relations. He was Minister of Hacienda, of Treasury. He was Minister of Social Policies. So highly experienced man, good man. And unfortunately, he has to carry the PRI name on his shoulders. And either he really separates from PRI, either he really becomes the champion of corruption, of fighting corruption, or he will not make it. So the coin is in the air. Many things can happen, but I'm sure Mexican people would not make a mistake to elect somebody that will not be with the qualities that are needed to be Mexican president.
Thank you. We've had many questions submitted regarding immigration. You spoke a lot about it tonight. You speak about it extensively in your book. I'm going to try to consolidate many of them into one. What message do you have for DACA students?
I love them. I wish we would have them in Mexico, but I tell them, don't worry, don't worry. You will prevail. You will come along. They're not going to get rid of you. You are too valuable. You're too important for this nation. And I'm sure people, public opinion, Congress, and everybody's going to be with you. Even the corporations, all of them is going to be with you, defending you. So you will come along. I am absolutely convinced and sure. And if not, as I said and I repeat, you're more than welcome in Mexico, and you will be welcome anywhere in the world. But I understand that your preference is to be here. This is your nation. This is where you grew. This is where your community is. This is where your family is. This is where your friends are. So don't worry. You will come along. And let me tell you that America resists. You have to resist. This is a dark night, but the light is at the end of the tunnel. I don't know why, but he's there. I'm sure God didn't send him there. I'm sure he was not selected by God, but he's there. and I tell you this, the dream of freedom will never, ever fade away in the night. Hope will always win, and love will always prevail. And that's a message for all you DACAs, and if anything I can do, I will do it. I would even build a wall so that they don't throw you out, that you stay in.
I think we have time for one more question. And again, I'm going to try to combine a couple of them into one. I think it's pretty clear that you're not a fan of President Trump. After the Trump presidency, what do you think are the prospects for U.S.-Mexican relations? And what can all of us do to ensure that those relations maintain at a good level?
You know, it's absolutely impossible that one man can tear off, can destroy what we have built with so much sacrifice, with so much effort. So we will prevail. But if you want an advice from somebody that loves this land, loves this nation, because I was taught by my grandfather to do so, because my grandfather was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. He came as a migrant back in 1895 without a penny in his pocket. And he crossed rivers, mountains, borders, and he settled in Guanajuato. And he found his dream there. And we've been there for 5 generations, loving this nation, loving Mexico. So my advice is that this will pass, and that our friendship, our partnership will prevail, and that we will keep building this place of leadership to the world, and we need each other, Canada, United States, and Mexico, and that will happen. We are facing the most exciting world that we could ever thought of. It's incredible what is coming on this 21st century. It's not only the job issue that I already mentioned, it's technology. Are you aware that those being born today, here, or anywhere in the world, expectancy of life will overpass 100 years? And those who are going to be born on the second part of the century, expectancy of life will overpass 130 years. So get ready for that. It's going to be boring, but we have to find something to do, and we will find it. Do you know that within this century we will end up with poverty and hunger? We already produce more food than the one we can eat, the 8 billion of us. We just need one of you young students here to find out how do we take that food from the factories or the farms into the tables of the needy. It's an economic problem, but the food is right there being wasted and being thrown away. All those things will happen within this century. Maybe we'll be in Mars. And by the way, those that forecast this century, they say that we're going to have a war between Mexico and United States again around 2070. I don't believe that. But that war or violence is the only thing that can happen that will cut this progress that is coming, that will cut this new world that we're building. Only violence and war will do that. The rest will happen, and it will happen as soon as within this century. So great leaders of today and tomorrow, remember, shortcut to happiness is being for others, is doing for others, is putting ourselves in the shoes of the other. Selfish leadership, like the one I have been mentioning, will not transcend, It cannot. Compassive leadership, leadership that loves, leadership that has a good cause, they will transcend. They will be forever. Gracias.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight, and I would like to extend
My diploma
and your diploma
and my gift.
is waiting backstage. I thank all of you for attending tonight and giving a hearty welcome to Mr. Fox and joining us this evening for an engaging conversation and a lot of motivational ideas. I think all of us are going to leave here inspired. We are selling a few books. We don't have a lot, but we have a few books for sale in the lobby. There are tables set up there as you exit. There's also information on the Latin America Center and a sign-in sheet if you want to sign up for our newsletter and our listserv that has information about more of our future events. And I will ask all of you to give me one final thank you to Mr. Fox to send him off. Thank you very much.
And Marta and I, Cristina, that is here, my daughter, we will be with open arms to welcome all of you to San Cristobal, that magic place where the first presidential library outside of the United States has been built. It's right there, half an hour from Lyon's International Airport. Many non-stop flights coming from Dallas, Houston, LA, Chicago, Los Angeles, Atlanta. So we'll wait for you for those real enchiladas, those real tacos, and those real tequilas. God bless you.